Welcome to the fifth and final part of our Bible study series, our digital Bible studies. I hope you found the studies worthwhile, and thank you again for joining us today. As usual, it'd be great if you could grab a Bible so we can look up some of the verses that we'll be referring to during the study. Just to remind you, the topic that we're studying at the moment is who you say I am. It's interesting that three famous characters in the Old Testament all ask God this same question. Moses asked God, "Who am I?" in the book of Exodus. Then David asked God the same question in 2 Samuel 7 verse 18. And finally Job asked God the same question in Job 7 verse 17. It's also very interesting that God's son Jesus then turns the tables and asks his followers the same question in the New Testament. Jesus asks his followers too, "Who do you say that I am?" So it's obviously an important question that men have been asking God throughout history. And our study over the last 5 weeks has been seeking to give the answer to this question. Our key verse for the study is found in 1 Peter 2 verse 9. Just like to read it to you. "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." This week we're studying the final phrase that Peter uses to describe God's people in verse 9. In this verse, Peter tells us that we may declare the praise of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Other Bible translations put this phrase slightly differently. For example, the New Living Translation says, "We can show others the goodness of God." And then the Message says, "To do his work and speak out for him, to tell others of the night and day difference he made for you." And finally, the New King James Version puts it like this, "That you may proclaim the praises of him." So here we see from these phrases, from these translations, that we've been called to be God's witnesses, to speak out for him, to show others who and what God is. Peter explains what our impetus and reason is for doing this. That is, God has called us out of darkness into his wonderful light. You see, our lives have been transformed by God's amazing grace and mercy. We've been recipients of the good news of the gospel, and so now we're called to pass on the good news to others. Let's have a look then at a little bit closer at this phrase in 1 Peter 2 verse 9. One commentary said about this phrase that the word for declare or show others or proclaim, as used in other translations that we refer to, comes from a word used nowhere else in the New Testament and has the meaning to tell out or to tell forth. It presupposes that every Christian is automatically to be an evangelist, so full of the knowledge of the excellence of God that is compelled to tell forth, to tell others, to tell those that he comes into contact with. We have no reason to proclaim what we have done or declare what we've achieved in life. As a Christian, our sole purpose and aim and focus in life is to tell and to show others what God has done for us. Another commentary on this phrase says this: God has chosen us, made us kings and priests, sanctified us by his Spirit and redeemed us by his Son as a special people, all of which laid on us the obligation to show forth with our lips and in our lives and in our conversations God's virtues or praises. That is the power, wisdom, goodness, love, grace and mercy of God. Interesting. I don't know whether you've ever been in a position where you've had to say something good about somebody that you know. I've been the best man at 2 weddings so far in my life, and part of the best man's role is to make a speech. at the wedding breakfast. Now, the speech often includes humorous incidents about the groom, but also it's an opportunity to say something good, to bring out some of the good attributes about the groom as well. Of course, it's a bit late to sell the good points of the groom to those listening, and particularly to the bride, as they've already got married, but it's a nice thing to do. Just here's a short extract from one speech, not given by me, but given by another best man at a wedding. This is what they said about the groom. "And you've become an irreplaceable friend to me. Thank you for rescuing me when I had a flat tire. Thank you for going to the restaurant with me, the chili restaurant with me a million times, even though you're a vegetarian. You really are the best. You are the best friend I could ask for." That's nice, isn't it? It was extolling the attributes of the groom. Well, we've been called by God to be his best man and best woman. We are to tell people how good our God is. We are to explain to those who are listening all God's good points, and there are plenty to go at. We are to sing his praises because God has been so good to us. He's done so much for us. We're to extol God's virtues, his amazing love, his wonderful grace and mercy, his outstanding goodness, which we've been on the receiving end of. One of my favourite worship songs at the moment is Bethel Music's "The Goodness of God." We've sung it quite a bit in church over the last few months. And the chorus goes like this: "'Cause all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God." And to me, this is what the phrase in 1 Peter 2 that we're studying today is calling us to do, to tell people about God's faithfulness, his goodness that we've experienced, so that they may also experience God's goodness in their lives as well. Tell, show, do is a classic methodology used to instruct or to train people. If you've ever been involved in training, I'm sure you've probably come across this strategy before. So tell, that means this is the first component of the instruction, and is used to provide the learner with key information, and facts, concepts, rules and procedures are conveyed using this strategy. Then the show part of the strategy is used to demonstrate and show people examples of what you want to tell them. And then the do part of the strategy comes after providing a variety of examples, and you should also put into practice what you've told and shown them, so that they can see the application of what you told them in reality. They can see how it can be applied. What amazed me when this thought came to my mind was that we see here from the different translations of 1 Peter 2 verse 9, this is exactly what we're called to do as Christians: tell, show, do, to use this classic effective technique to communicate the gospel of God. All these three key elements are contained in the statements that we've been looking at in our study. If you want to be effective in passing on our message, we need to tell, show and do. The Message translation, for example, says that we should speak out for him to tell others. So that's the tell part of the statement. And then the New Living Translation of the phrase says that we should show others the goodness of God. That's the show part of the strategy. And then the Message translation also says that we should do his work. And this is a do phrase, part of the strategy, the practical application. So we see as God witnesses, we're to tell others about God. We're to show them examples from our own life of how God has made a difference. And then we do the work so people can see God has made a difference in our lives, and we can effectively fulfill the calling that God has given us in 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. Just going back to our key verse in the New International Version of the Bible, it translates the phrase like this: that you may declare the praises of him. The word declare means to announce or proclaim. Nicky Gumbel, in his book Questions of Life, says this: the heart of telling others is proclamation. It's announcing, communicating and proclaiming the Christian faith to those outside of the faith. Nicky goes on to tell a story about a young woman who became a Christian and started attending a church in London. At weekends she would stay with her parents in Wiltshire, and then she'd leave her parents at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday afternoon to make sure she was back home in time for the evening service at church. One Sunday she got stuck in traffic and so could not get to the evening service. She was so upset that she burst into tears. She went round to some friends who didn't go to church and they said, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" She said, "I've missed church." The friends were totally mystified by this, and so next Sunday they went with her to church to see what they were missing. One of the friends became a Christian shortly afterwards. You see, this young woman simply proclaimed her faith and it produced fruit. We don't have to make it difficult or complicated. We don't need to learn the theology. We don't need to stand on a podium and make a grand proclamation. We just need to proclaim it simply, and God will do the rest. So who does God say that we are? He says, "I am chosen." He says, "I am part of his royal priesthood." He says, "I am holy." He says that I am his special possession. And he says that I am his witness. What we're going to do now is have a short pause, and then we're going to meet live to have a short discussion about the Bible study. So please, if you want, go and make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and then sign into our online discussion using the link that you were sent on WhatsApp or Facebook. Please have the password ready as well that was included in the link, just in case you need it. See you shortly in 10 minutes.